I got tasked to put together a program to assess our building control systems. We needed to know what risks we might or might not have with all the various systems we have as well as vendor risks. We also wanted to get a handle on remote access. What type and who has access. I quickly learned that either our systems were exposed directly to the internet or the vendors had installed LogMeIn or TeamViewer which they controlled. And which meant they had 24/7 access to our systems with no oversight. We hired help because I knew with all the varied systems and multitude of vendors and of course, my lack of understanding, this was the best option. They asked me to take a look at our parking vendor. I hadn't really considered this system to offer any risks to us. The HVAC, lighting, generators, and elevators is where our risks were. Boy, was I wrong.
I'm James P., and I'm head of asset management for a Class A commercial real estate company. We have over 100 properties that total a little in excess of about 200 million square feet of leasable space throughout the Southeast. Within this portfolio, I've got about 500 tenants that range in all shapes and sizes, from technology companies to entertainment companies to media companies, healthcare, and government agencies. And like other CRE companies in the building space, right now we're not, and I repeat, not centrally managed. We have multiple vendors that help control our networks, and they have remote access that through shared accounts. And another challenge is for us is that the company, we have an IT staff. And yes, today we all know that IT staff is very important in managing our buildings, but their manpower is basically just enough to help and handle the IT operations that they have to do each and every day. I've had discussions with IT leadership about being tasked with getting a little bit more involved with the operational technology networks and helping me develop policy and procedures to help manage our company, especially our facility side and the multiple vendors that support us. And within the IT space, they've hired outside help to assist with their properties, make recommendations, and create some IT specific policies and procedures. And again, I want to emphasize that it's just the bare amount. Is it enough? Absolutely not. So kind of give you some more perspective here. The first property that I was involved with from the asset side involved HVAC, lighting, and of course the power that went with it. However, at that particular location, there was a parking system. And again, I think today we all try to tie everything in together as part of our digital transformation. But I was on site, and when I asked to see it, I was told by my team there that it was accessible by an outside company. And I'm kind of just saying to myself, why? And the IT folks were there with me, and they said there's really no need for an additional outside service. Why? The question was, why are we utilizing a third party on our network that's completely, totally separated from the building networks that we have and or the IT networks that we have? So one of the things that, as head of asset management, I started to do was to get assessments to come in and take a look at our IT side, our OT side, our devices, our equipment that were on the network and how they interact with one another and so forth and so on, which I think today is vital for any type of asset management progress that you must do. So this third-party assessment group reminded me that CREIT, that regardless of what was really in our building and our buildings, at any event, the control systems and or the contractors or the folks that we did give access to could gain access without our knowledge, and doing so may cause an incident or something that is not conducive to our business, to our tenants, and of course to our brand. And what was interesting, at the conclusion of the assessment, there was nothing that was looked at on the parking system. And again, remember, I'm referring to the parking system that is part of what we deliver to our tenants and occupants, and that the assessment company just went ahead and just moved on from there. So since that time, there was a period of about three and a half weeks that kind of went by. And let me go back, just take a step back. And during that period, I failed to tell you guys that the building that I'm going to be really talking about here, in which this incident occurred, is roughly about 30 stories, give or take. And as I mentioned, our portfolio includes a wide range of tenants and whatever. In this particular property, we had 2 government agencies and a very well-known, very well-respected media company. So let me kind of tell you now about the event. So here's this particular event that I have never in my wildest dreams, as heading up a portfolio such as ours, that this would have ever occurred. So the parking vendor employee came back to the building, into our parking garage office there, and it was after helping one of the ticket takers with some issues or working out something. The employee was alone in the office at that time, which again, we gave them access to the office to have those privileges when they were on site. You know, after being there a few minutes and doing some things, this particular employee went over and looked over at the printer and saw a single page that was printed from the printer. And he wasn't really sure what happened, but didn't really think of it, and said, "Oh, it's just a page on a printer. You know, people print things, so what's the difference? What's the big deal?" So eventually, nobody came to claim that piece of paper or whatever. So he took the page from the printer, and for some reason, was looking at it, trying to determine, well, who printed this and who should I give it to? Do they need it? Whatever. Saw a very simple group of words, a sentence that was printed on the back of this piece of paper. And it's the 7 words, no one, and I mean no one in the building space really ever, and I mean ever, want to hear. The sentence, would have concerned the employee more had that printer been part of the network other than the parking system's network. So there were other things that were part of the parking system network that, I think finally the light bulb went off, and he started to think, well, maybe that is something I should be concerned about. Should this be something that we should be alarmed about? After a bit, another colleague of his came into the office and thought, who would have done something like this? And they were joking like everybody else. This isn't right. I don't think anybody within our world would have done something like this or whatever. And they both agreed after, a little bit of discussion that neither one of them had done it. But again, they didn't figure out who may have done this. The only other employee they figured out by records was there that day was agreed that third person that was there, they would have never done anything like that either. So again, continuing with this story, as time continues to pass, and again, key here is time is continuing to pass. There was a little concern still, but not knowing what to do, they decided to give our main office a call to their supervisor. And because of the subject of that 7-word sentence, this supervisor really started to get very concerned, and obviously made the 2 employees get very concerned as well, and kind of question, why weren't you concerned a little bit more earlier on than just calling this to our attention now? So they continued their conversation, and at the end of the day, in this particular building, I'm going to tell you what was on the back of that piece of paper. Again, it's something we never ever want to hear. It was, "There is a bomb in the building." After a little bit of time, the two employees who I've mentioned in the story went to their supervisor and brought up this condition, or this situation, I should say, and the supervisor, really questioned them about, given what was on this message on the back of the printed paper, why weren't you concerned? They all, initially assumed that someone had gotten into the office, used the computer, printed this sentence, but the problem here with that theory was there was only 4 people at that location who ever had a key who could easily or really get into that office. We had an investigator there. There was no sign of a forced entry. There was no incident response for this parking employees and their supervisors as they debated eventually to go higher up the food chain, higher up the ladder to talk about this particular situation. The supervisor, in fact, upon our investigation, told the employee to follow the instructions of the facility manager, and that the supervisor was on their way to the building. The FM immediately went to the parking office and wanted to see the printout. Again, more time is passing. Time. Time is critical with something like this, as we all know. The property manager and the facility manager, finally getting together, agreed it was time to notify the tenants and that they must evacuate the building. So what happens? The building is evacuated. The emergency agencies and all the necessary outside people were called, and they started to arrive there on the scene. The agencies swept the site, started that early in the afternoon on day 1, and finally completed their sweep, give or take a little 24, 20, 30 hours a bit later on. And during that time, all the tenants had to remain outside of the building and could not return. And this mounted to about almost a 3-day period in which basically that office building was completely shut down.
You know how it is. Guys play pranks on each other. When we heard someone had printed there was a bomb in the building, it just seemed like it was a joke. Even when nobody would admit they did it, we still thought it was a joke. By the time we figured out that someone had found that printer on the web and printed this did, and if there had actually been a bomb, it could have been too late for all of us. Even though it wasn't a real bomb, there was plenty of damage done. This hurt us bad.